We are live. So, welcome everyone to AAC in the Cloud 2021. I am proud to be your moderator, and we're going to be listening to Saoirse today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Saoirse now. Saoirse, take it away.
Hi, I'm Saoirse. I am an autistic, multiply disabled, multimodal communicator. I would like to take a moment to make a note that in this discussion I will briefly be touching on topics of food and cooking, exercise, as well as religion, specifically paganism, as well as medical stuff in hospitals briefly. If these are topics that you are not in a space to process, please be aware those are going to be discussed as they apply to AAC users here. I often use Multimodal Communicator to describe or explain my communication style because I shift between multiple forms of communication methods and tools throughout the day. While I primarily use symbol-based AAC, I will switch to typing depending on the situation. On a given day, I will shift between 4 to 5 communication methods and tools. This is often based off what I'm doing and what makes most sense and will be most effective for me in each situation. I am a relatively active person by nature, wherein I need regular movement and activity for my body to self-regulate, to process and to focus for periods of time. Most people in their day-to-day shift between a variety of activities: walking, cooking, cleaning, dressing, self-care, eating. AAC needs to adapt to all these activities, which often requires more than one. All too often it is assumed that AAC users need one type of AAC, often assuming a robust high-tech AAC is enough to meet all our users' needs in all situations, and leaving out lower-tech options, either believing them to be inferior in some way, seeing their manner as something to move past. It is common for non-AAC users to forget or not process the wide range of places they readily expect to have and use their voice with ease, while expecting that our system must also be able to adapt to and adjust to these same situations, while not accounting for the large variety of physical obstacles and barriers that are often in place on a day-to-day that make using AAC difficult to begin with. While a proper, robust AAC system is absolutely critical, assuming one system should be able to do it all couldn't be farther from reality. Communication is fluid, and having multiple options allows us to adjust how we are communicating with what will work for where we are in that space and time. When it comes to my primary method of communication, I usually use high-tech AAC, as you can see here. However, I don't just use one specific app. Instead, I have 2 primary AAC apps switching between on a regular basis: CoughDrop and Pro2Go. These are both symbol-based apps that also allow for typing. However, they are both slightly different from each other in ways that matter. For example, I find it much easier to type for a long time within Pro2Go. So if I feel I'm going to need to be going between symbols in long periods of typing, I am much more likely to be using Pro2Go, while CoughDrop works really well for my symbol use and muscle memory. In addition to also being the only one of the 2 that works on my Android devices as well, meaning it goes on my newer dedicated AAC tablet. CoughDrop also has the ability to use iGiz, specifically on iPad Pro devices, which is another method of AAC access I need and use from time to time depending on what's going on. While I type and use a letterboard as one of my main methods of AAC, it is actually very important for me that the majority of my AAC systems, both my primary, secondary, high-tech and low-tech systems, are all predominantly symbol-based or picture-based. Though most people would consider me a relatively proficient typer when reading what I write or seeing my typing speed, provided they are willing to accept the wide range in the amount of typos and misspellings. I actually have a pretty significant reading disability. Most text-based things flat out do not work for me. This includes things like reminders, to-do lists, and text-based AAC systems. Being able to type allows for a lot of versatility in my ability to communicate, and I would not change that. If anything, I wish I had the ability to have learned it much younger and allowed to use it in place of things like handwriting much earlier on. My reading disability is just one of a few reasons I use and prefer symbol-based AAC over typing. There is a common belief I have seen with a fair bit when it comes to symbol-based AAC that the goal should be to move away from and phase out symbols. However, that is a lot more complicated than people realize. Not only are symbols often more effective and efficient for me, especially when I know where they are, symbols also help me after a seizure, after and during some of my migraines, and when my motor skills are being particularly bad. Symbol-based AAC is also really helpful for giving presentations such as this and being able to keep my place. As I said before, reading is hard, and symbols help me remember where I left off. There's this common misconception that symbols are somehow childish or infantilizing, and that notion, in and of itself, is directly harmful and stigmatizing. There are a lot of AAC users who use and benefit from symbol-based AAC. As I mentioned before, it can be more efficient for some of us. For me, one reason symbols are often more efficient than typing, especially when I know my system well, is they can be relatively fast, but more importantly for me, they are always spelled correctly. So my message is always clear, unlike with typing where when I am typing I regularly make multiple spelling mistakes in a single sentence. This means when I do use the typing option in my systems, I often have to retype and repeat my messages, which is often extremely frustrating. This gets worse around migraines and seizure, of course. It is also way easier to use symbols for me while walking in some ways than it is typing. However, I do tend to prefer to pause and use my AAC rather than walk while trying to lay out my message. Symbols are also extremely helpful for me when I am struggling with word retrieval, and they can help me process what I'm thinking and put words to my thoughts. There are many AAC users of all ages who not only use but communicate most efficiently with symbols. And there are many very advanced symbol sets with a large variety of swears and adult content, which needs to be made more readily accessible in all AAC apps. I have seen it do a lot of harm in the community as well, both with families and people searching for AAC being concerned about robust symbol-based AAC systems appearing infantilizing, often citing the bright colors and pictures and the symbols. However, these are not in fact infantilizing on their own. It is only when people assign such things as child-level AAC or for small kids that it develops the societal stigma of being so, which then in turn leads to people being afraid to use systems they need for fear of being infantilized. While society reinforces internalized ableism, messages around having meaning and using AAC, we really need to stop assigning things to specific ages, especially based on some biased notions around appearance. Symbols, drawings, picture cards, bright colors, those have nothing to do with age. The issue with infantilization is especially how we treat kids, not that being a kid is bad. We as society treat children, as well as older adults, and anyone that is disabled as a lesser person. No one deserves to be treated as a lesser person ever, not for age, race, disability, or any other reason. There are many reasons I will switch from Cough Drop to Pro-Love-Go and then back. I regularly switch up which apps I use based on the situation. When I started on Cough Drop, it was to meet needs I had that I couldn't meet with Pro-Love-Go. However, it was never to stop using Pro-Love-Go. Cough Drop simply had features I needed and could go on platforms that Pro-Love-Go cannot. I still use and need both. In fact, in the future, if I get any other AAC app, it will never be with me intent on dropping one or the other for the new app. If I add another app, it will be used when it makes most sense for my use, and to best meet my needs. This also applies to lower tech forms of AAC too. There seems to be this concept that if you add an AAC app, that the person will no longer use their old app, or that we must stop using the other app because we are changing apps. However, it is more common that I will use both the new app as well as my old one. This seems to be similar with other AAC users I have spoken with as well. iGaze is never really looked at or considered as an access method for autistics. However, from the moment I first tried it, it was like it bridged a huge gap. The gap between my brain and making my body work and do the things, especially my hands, which I often have a lot of issues with, especially around coordination and getting them to do what I want reliably all the time. The moment Cough Drop had it, I made sure to use it. So now one of the access methods I use from time to time is iGaze. This is specifically helpful for me when I'm really struggling with coordination and getting my body to do what my brain is telling it to. Some days this is needed more than others. iGaze can be particularly useful in the post-ictal phase, just after a seizure for some of my seizures, and sometimes in my postdromes as well, that is my post-migraine phase. There are also situations where iGaze is just flat-out helpful access method and allows me to communicate easier while doing easier. For example, while I am eating or doing crafts, or anything that I need to focus on using hand coordination. This access method also has been really useful in medical and emergency situations. iGaze isn't perfect. It has flaws. Its Philippine is also tiring, but I can't stress enough iGaze is actually a really important access method for me, and I really think more people need a chance to explore it as an option. I am Irish and American by heritage. My heritage means a great deal to me, and I put a lot of time and effort into learning Irish. My goal is to be fluent in and predominantly use Irish one day. I also plan to and hope to pass the language on to my children if I have them. I regularly make sure to sprinkle into my day-to-day. While I am not currently in the process of trying to find the new AAC app, one situation I will absolutely purchase a whole new app would be if it was in my head, where we go, which is the Irish language. Unfortunately, the majority of AAC systems and apps are only in English or have a limited number of other languages, which are usually Spanish, French, German. There is very little to no support for most languages in their layout, or how other languages physically work differently with the grammar and language setup. I am not going to go in depth here on how languages differ in structure and grammar and such. I can say I had a lot of trouble learning and fully processing that myself. I have spent some time building out an Irish language AAC page in my Cough Drop app as I am learning. However, the differences in language layout and grammar make this extremely difficult to do fully. While I do have the option to Google Translate in Cough Drop, the translation isn't as effective or smooth with Irish. So though it is slower, it ends up being better in the long run to build it up from scratch. This is a huge issue for so many other communities and their languages. With a small setup I have thus far, I still run into issues with the voice and pronunciation. Currently, there are no multilingual voices that can both speak Irish and English that can go on tablets or that are available in AAC apps. There are currently things in motion that will hopefully change this. In the meantime, when I am working on either practicing my Irish or working on one of my lessons in Rosetta Stone, I have been relying on and using a bear.ie, which is a website created by Trinity College. This site has an Irish text-to-speech, is an online Irish text-to-speech generator. There are some things currently in the works that will hopefully change this soon. Another thing we have done here at home to support my Irish use is created a glow-in-the-dark letterboard specifically in Irish. This was put together modifying one of the keyboards used in Costco. As you can see, there are two sets of counting numbers as well as the vowels with fada. This is the first draft and is in need of a few adjustments to improve it, but it works for now. Our home is set up to try and optimize communication access as best we can with what we currently have. Between mounts to optimize tablet use, a large mix of low-tech backup and picture card, it's pretty easy to switch between that method in the home, though there is still a lot we are working on improving and setting up. One thing that has worked really well for us is creating a communication system on doors using picture cards. For example, for my bedroom, I have placed a strip of my door, which I will use to put up picture cards to communicate things like, "No, for please don't come in, I want to be alone. Yes, you're welcome to come and read. Busy reading, don't bother me. Card am I with someone, often DBS support person or something similar. Walk. I have gone out for a walk," and so on. This is one of the many ways I communicate things with my partner. There are things we are still working on and getting set up, like pictures of where things go for organizing. I'm trying to design what's in the fridge versus when we need to buy a shopping list using picture cards, as well as a few other projects. We have many different things in the home we use for AAC on a regular basis. Some are things that may not have not been meant to be used as AAC, but now are. Some are tools that were meant for writing or drawing that fit this really well. For example, this is something my partner got me from his work. It's a small little pen with a black LCD screen that draws in green. As you can see, I am able to write or draw on it and it easily erases. This is something we picked up at a local pharmacy. It's a whiteboard with a backlight. This works both as a super bright night light, but also nighttime AAC. This is my standard communication board we have used for years at this point. We got this one at the Abilities Expo, though it is time to get a new one soon. We have to get new ones every few years to every year. This is another thing we have. This is usually set up in my bedroom. This is the felt alphabet thing with pockets that I hang across from my bed. This is something we found at Target a few years back and got it immediately. I have a laser pointer in my nightstand, which I use this to be a long-distance letter board. This is something that I tend to use at night or during a storm or if I'm trying to save power on my device. I have been practicing painting for a few years now. Specifically, I have had to both adapt my AAC to suit my practices, as most AAC apps are Christian-based in vocabulary. This has meant I have had to build out my own word sets, adding words like the diamond, the marvel, otherworld. Right relationship, a lot of words from the various lore of the specific path I follow, as well as words for things and tools I use, rituals and holidays, and so on. A few of the tools I have and will use. I have also used this backup AAC. However, Far more common is that I have several things I do not use in my own personal craft and practices that I have adapted for AAC. Namely, a lot of the Ouija board design things I have gotten to be an easy-to-use AAC. This includes a shirt, to be a wearable AAC, a face mask, which though I can't spell using it gave me a convenient yes and no on each side of my face, and this headscarf which I could use with my pendulum, but mostly use in a cloth lightweight AAC I can carry easily. While high-tech AAC can does work in places like baths and showers, and I do keep them nearby, especially at pools where it can sit on the edge. Oftentimes, I will have a low-tech board for use in the pool, shower, and so on. This lets me have a system I can use without constantly needing to draw or worry about water droplets hitting it and making the wrong buttons hit and speak. In fact, there are a lot of situations where I switch to low-tech specifically because it is either a bit easier than dealing with a high-tech device in said situation or safer in general. I know I can use about 10 or so signs in ASL I am fluent in using, which I will use throughout the day. These are especially useful to me for when I'm not easily able to access other AAC mess-ups, or I just am feeling like those are being more effective. I also tend to use hand signs a fair bit in places like the ocean, or if I need to quickly ask for food or a drink. I have taken some math courses and would like to do so again in the future. I am very much not fluent. For me, it is a lot easier to sign than it is for me to understand when other people are signing. On an average day, besides basic self-care, dressing, eating, bathing, and so on, I need to get a fair amount of physical activity. My body needs a minimum of 7,000 to 10,000 steps to sleep, to rest okay at night, and not hit sensory underload. I also spend 30-35 minutes a day doing a home workout and physical therapy. Before COVID, I would often go to the gym to do this. These help me both work on and maintain body awareness, motor control, but also helps with my joints that regularly go out from time to time if I'm not keeping up with strengthening them. Then I will usually spend time walking, pacing, stimming, and various other things. During the summer, I spend a lot of time near and around water, hiking, and being active outside. I tend to spend a fair amount of time around water on a general basis. I really enjoy swimming and going to the beach. For me, time at the beach was something special for Mom and I, so that is something I tend to do a fair bit, along with going to a pool when I can. When it comes to communication in these situations, I tend to switch between 3 different methods, having both my tablet available, a low-tech system on hand, and relying on a few actual signs I know. In general, around the pool, my robust AAC is fine to sit on the pool's edge in a waterproof case with a waterproof speaker. Usually the biggest issue I have is droplets landing on the screen and misfiring buttons, or making buttons hard to select, which can be fixed with a towel. Though sometimes I just prefer hand signs or little boards in that situation, a robust AAC can go most places, and as far as poolside, I am often hesitant to bring it into the ocean, as I don't fully trust my waterproof cases in the middle of an ocean with my expensive gear, and I am always worried not just about the case failing, but also about it sinking and not coming back up. Often when we go out to the beach, we pack a communication board that we bring with us. This is generally on a string to help not lose it. We have seen a few communication boards on kickboards, and we will be making one of those at some point. Sometimes we will go out with a friend or family who has taken to either some amusement park or some activity for the day. Depending on the situation, we tend to adjust what systems we will be using based on the activity. For example, we had a friend a few years back during the summer who we got to go to a water park with. It was a lot of fun. But my AAC methods were reversed. Hand signs and low-tech became my primary form of communication as we went from one water to the next. And I only used my tablet when we got it from our walker during lunch, as I didn't want to deal with not having anyone I trusted to watch it or gambling with how much did I really trust my waterproof case. Having the ability to adapt, switch, and adjust like that is really critical. While going someplace like a water park is a once and an extremely rare wow, with lots of preparation for it. The need to change which method of communication we're using changes on a much more regular basis. Because we don't know if or when emergencies will happen, and because hospitals do happen sometimes as well as doctor's appointments. I have an emergency AAC packet that is kept specifically in my bag for emergency situations and doctor's appointments. I have used it when I was in the hospital or when dealing with short-term immediate care needs. In this, I have a pain scale, a letter board, and a list of meds currently, as well as a copy of my COVID-19 vaccination card. We are currently working on getting printed outside the human body for pointing to, or ideally coloring in, so I can help doctors better see the pain when I can't describe it, specifically the shape and form it takes. I'm also working on updating my old communication passport, which will also go in here once it is complete. Unfortunately, right now, I don't have any way to give doctors access to my cough map account in emergencies, so they could download it into their tablets and open up my profile if anything happens to my tablet. Or I would include things like a long and a 4-digit PIN code so they could do that too. We also often use AAC in non-conventional ways. For example, my partner and I will swap Bluetooth speakers if we will be on opposite sides of the house or when we go to bed at night. That way, when we type and press speak, we can hear each other and easily speak to each other from separate rooms. Because I am so active, from not being able to sit still for any real amount of time, to doing regular workouts, to general life activities, and regularly being near water or general situations that might be hard on my devices, all of my high-tech AAC and phones are in ruggedized cases. As a general rule, I try to make sure my cases are ruggedized and waterproof. My newest tablet that is for dedicated AAC is specifically a ruggedized tablet itself even. I am extremely accident-prone and have broken and shattered many electronics and devices in the past. It is critical to keeping my devices safe and making sure I have communication access in many different environments and situations. I make sure my speakers are rugged and waterproof. My devices and speakers need to be able to handle showers, pools, rain, snow, heat, sun, sand, mud, grass, falling and being dropped, and many, many more things. I have dropped iPads into snowbanks and dropped them in a way they flew into objects. I have had a dog bite my iPad when they were trying to grab a stick and so on. I really can't stress how important protecting devices is for me. I am really clumsy. Another thing that's been super critical for me has been getting a mount for my tablet that allows me to use it with eye gaze easier. It also helps me hold my device and free up my hands when eating without taking up table space or doing games and so on. For walking today, like most people, I am pretty active online. I regularly will use my tablet for both the AAC and the internet, and will regularly switch between them when I am working online. In fact, I have several other apps on my tablet I switch between along with my AAC apps. Some I even use in place of more traditional AAC apps for communication, depending on the situation. For example, apps I use Messenger, Google Hangouts, email, and so on. Often I will use these if I want to have a quick, quiet conversation with a person who is either far away like most people use them, or who is right near me, but either don't want to draw attention, making my device speak, or by waving my device to show my screen. Music has also been something I have used for communicating when I can't word things. But a song fits what I'm feeling and needing to express, often putting it on repeat. Reading supports and cognitively accessible materials are absolutely critical for me. I am an extremely slow reader, and I take a lot longer to process what I have read. As I had mentioned earlier, I have a significant reading disability. Ever since I was a very young child, reading has been a huge challenge for me. I strongly remember fighting moving away from picture books specifically because reading was so hard for me. I really didn't like reading. For me, books on tape were a big deal, and I got them anytime I could. If I sat down to read something, it was because I really was interested in it. As sitting and reading is one of the hardest things for my body to do. There are a lot of factors that go into this, like my brain reading one word at a time, not being able to do sight words, the fact that when I look at a page of words, all the white space jump out at me and I notice patterns and designs in the way the spaces are laid out, causing a pretty serious overload, to skipping words and missing sentences when I read lightly, because I am also dyslexic. To give another example, simple things. Ordering off a menu causes me serious anxiety because I can't read and process most menus fast enough, so I generally end up ordering food I know is a safe food, or whatever someone else orders that I can see is a safe food. People who have met me would say I am a fast typer. They would use words like proficient to describe my use of my system. My ability to type well or use the internet doesn't change that. It only masks my read challenges for people who don't know me well. Their assumptions that I read well because I typed or that I post online are not only false but missing a huge part of the picture. There needs to be an end to the assumption that if people can type well or appears to communicate in a way clear to them they don't need reading support. This is not only entirely possible to be false, but ends up harming people. I have several supports I use every day to help me access materials in the world. The first and the one I use the most often is the screen reader on my tablet that reads highlighted text. This is extremely critical for me in my day-to-day life. I am an admin ask me I am an AAC user, and that is something I could not do without that ability. And to be completely honest, I wouldn't really use the internet all that much either without it. Save maybe watching YouTube and TikTok as they do not require reading. I also use the Dream Reader app, which has been a huge help in reading. Another tool I have to help me read is my reading pen, which is a small pen I hold and scan over a sentence, either in a book or on a flyer. Then pen reads the text out loud to me. This has been an amazing tool for my independence and ability to access books and reading. I still rely on audiobooks too. Unfortunately, I was not able to find where my reading pen got off to, but I will post a link to a video of it in the Slack after this. Communication is fluid and dynamic, not just for speaking people. Sometimes strengths in one area cause people to overlook support needs in another. People who use oral speech are allowed to be fluid and dynamic in their communication, shifting from talking to texting, body language, to emails, yet all too often when it comes to AAC users, and those of you who are non-speaking or unreliable speaking, or who have any communication challenge or support needs, Our communication needs are often seen as flat, and also we need to have options to be able to be as fluid or not as we can, and we wonder how at communists those needs get overlooked, leading to support needs or communication access needs being neglected or denied based off assumptions made. This needs to change. AAC implementation needs to be more multimodal based. AAC users need to be allowed to shift between apps. We need to be allowed to test and use more than one AAC app. We need to explore the various access methods. There should always be access to multiple options for communication tools. We need better symbol sets, more capable of meeting adult communication needs. There needs to stop being assumptions that people don't need reading supports or cognitive accessible materials, and these need to be made widespread and easily accessible, and it needs to be easier for everyone to access and use a large variety of tools and supports, and all these should be offered in all languages. People should get to have access to these tools in their native languages. People shouldn't be forced into English to have communication access. Go round my egg. Thank you, everyone. I have some time for a few questions. Can the moderator read them to me, please?
Hey, yeah, so if anybody has some questions, feel free to type them in now. We've got one from Elena. It says, when you're preparing for a presentation like this, do you type it all out in like a Word program and have it read it, or do you use Proloco or CoughDrop and export it to another program, or just use it, period?
I type it out into a Google Docs. Then I go through several proofreadings, where I listen to it in the doc. After that, I have someone else proofread. Then I program each button, then give it a few more listens through and edits.
How many lines can one button handle? Lines or words?
Depending on the program, each holds at least a paragraph or two.
And when you're using like the letterboard or the shirt where you're spelling out, yeah, are you having the person you're communicating with read each word after you're done, or are you doing a full sentence and having them read it out?
They usually read each word. After sometimes they'll write it if we are doing a kid feature thing.
Okay. Yeah.
A longer thing.
Okay, so another question. So the Google Slides, read it out loud and you make a button, or is there a different program reading it? Like is Google Slides reading it, or is one of your AAC apps reading it?
I use the read selected text option on my tablet.
Okay.
Being able.
When you're switching back and forth between Proloquo and Cough Drop, are you using the same voice, or do you prefer a different voice on each?
I use the same voice. I actually feel weird when I use a different voice, since I have used this voice for so long now.
Interesting. So Yolana also said that your presentation was so smooth. She's impressed.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions for Saoirse? Give it another minute or so. Do you know what the name of that little tablet that you were writing in green is? That was interesting looking.
I think it's called a buddy board.
That's kind of cool. Okay, so here's a good question from Untitled Turtle. All right, so there it is. If someone is starting to make their own low-tech things, what would you think is the most important things for people to know? So it says, if someone is starting making their own low-tech products or their own low-tech tools, what would you think is the most important things for people to know? For some pointers.
I would include having a letterboard as an option. The main question is, what materials are you planning to make them out of? Will you be using photos? And if you're going to be printing them, invest in laminating. A lot of my communication boards have letterboards and pictures, which is super helpful for me. Also, don't be afraid to see what's around you. You can use as AAC. We find a lot of useful tools at Target and CapEx and so on. CVS. Like a lot of our low-tech tools has things we found not meant to be AAC. Also, always include more than requesting and basic needs. Include things like common community things, shared experiences, like example supports to discuss things like music and shows and other things. You have things you want to discuss with peers, like I have cards printing for Wolf Walkers, because that's a movie and a game, and you have cards for games too. So we can discuss those when using low tech too. Low tech needs to be still be able to discuss things you like. Sorry, wording is sometimes hard.
Understandable. Got one more question. So Lana says, I once saw a video of a low-tech AAC attached to somebody's wrist for communication. And have you thought about something like that when you're doing strenuous activities, and so you're not hurting your device and things?
I am so happy you mentioned that. I used to have a really awesome AAC bracelet but made by a good friend. I misplaced it a bit ago and I am planning to get another soon.
Nice.
So yes, those are the best.
That's awesome. Okay, well, like we're gonna wrap up, but there you may want to go in and look through the Slack channel.
That's the Irish.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if you can take a screenshot of it and post it in the Slack channel, but that'd be kind of interesting afterwards too. And then, yeah, if you want to go back through and look at some of those comments, and if you have more to comment on some of them, that'd be great too. But
My Gwen. Thanks everyone. I'm off to decompress and start drafting ideas and layouts for next year. Have a great conference.
appreciate it. You should decompress. That was a great session. So thank you very much, and we hope you'll look at presenting again next year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So on.
Yeah.